So, welcome to episode 4 of Beyond the Brief. This is our monthly discussion with leading in-house experts and also partners of Macaulay Global Consulting. An opportunity to explore people's career stories, but also explore the dynamics of client and agency relationships. This month, I am super excited to welcome Jess Ringer from Wonderful Brilliant, a people consultancy specialising in learning and education and culture of a business. So welcome, Jess. Thanks for joining me.
Hello.
Shall we just skip straight into question 1?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you mind telling everybody a little bit about your career story and how you got to be a co-founder of Wonderful Brilliant?
Yeah, sure. So I started out my career fresh out of university, joined a sort of a graduate program, working in the education sector. So I spent a few years in ops and then moved into a head of L&D role. Company was called Explore Learning, and we did maths and English tuition for children. I learned very quickly that I'm not built to work with children, but actually lots of the learning around how the brain works and kind of academic development, as well as motivation and getting people excited about what they're doing, is much the same in grown-ups as it is in children. So got very geeky about brain learning and neuroscience and all of that sort of thing. Took that company, I was there for 12 years, so quite a long time. And sort of worked in L&D, but did a fair bit also in developing the culture of the organization. So we grew from about 150 people to 4,000 by the time that I left. It was super quick scale and multi-site, and people fresh out of university who didn't know what they were doing. They had tons of excitement and enthusiasm, but literally no idea. And so getting it to scale was about knowledge and helping people grow their own little tuition center like a business, but also about how you can keep people excited and let it feel like a startup when it's actually no longer a startup at all. It's actually becoming quite the behemoth of an organization. And we ranked very highly in the Times Top 100 Best Companies. And actually, I got really excited about doing the culture stuff and what gets people out of bed in the morning and how to connect them to the kind of wider purpose of an organization. Then I had some babies, 2 of them. And after that, I then went to work for a startup nursery group as a head of people, and with the plan to rip up the rule book and start again on how we do culture in early years. So that was a super exciting job. I was there for about 3 years, and we built the most amazing people proposition. Again, it was very high scale. So when I joined, had 1 nursery. It's now got about 40. And again, it was that kind of cultural piece, building out all of the L&D and recruitment and all of that sort of thing, but the cultural piece, and how you can really motivate people to love and live their job when actually really they're looking after babies for minimum wage, or not much more than minimum wage. So it was a big project, but it was super exciting. And then I went freelance and set up WB 2 years ago. And so Wonderful Brilliant, in partnership with the lovely Becky, is all about that. It's that like amazing intersection between leadership and culture, and how there's a bit of a Venn diagram between those 2 things, right? So if your leaders are exceptional at setting really clear expectations, treating people like human beings, and understanding the wonderful, nuanced, complex human beings that they've got in their organizations, and they create a culture and an environment where those people can be at their best and that they can thrive, then you get brilliant results.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's what we do.
That's amazing. Okay, so question two is about exploring what's changed in your specific industry. So what would you say, yeah, since you started out and until today, is that the biggest difference that you've noticed? And maybe that kind of links into what you're, most looking after and dealing with at the moment in terms of your clients.
Yeah, sure. So when I started out, training was a thing where you got 20 people into a room, you spent a full day with them, and you talked at them. And I think leadership has changed as well. So, leadership used to be, I'm the person standing at the top with all the answers, telling my underlings what to do. It's that kind of command and control. Because of the environment that now people are operating within, where there's change everywhere, organizations need people to think for themselves. And so for people to be able to think for themselves, they can't just follow instructions. When we're waiting to follow instructions all of the time, our brains switch off. And so what companies need is to enable their people to poke and challenge at direction. They need to kind of coach them to be able to innovate and to think differently about problems and to have a voice in the organization. So this kind of concept of trust and psychological safety, so that people across organizations can speak up and challenge. And so that's probably the biggest shift, because when I started out, I used to run a 5-day training for our managers all in one go. We never run anything typically more than half a day, because people are so busy and so hectic. They need to learn within the workplace.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we've separated out our training into lots of different elements. If you buy a program with us, you might have half a day workshop on something, and then someone will go back to work and they'll try some stuff out, and then they'll meet with a buddy, and then there'll be a group coaching session, and all of that kind of enabled by AI. And so what we're doing is we're crafting experiences at work that enable people to think better. Whereas in the past, it was, come on your 5-day essential skills for people managers training or whatever it is, and get to do it. So very different.
And if a lot of the people that I talk to on here will be more marketing and comms, and will probably say, what's the biggest change? Technology, like reporting, analytics, AI. But actually, I think in your respective world, when I think back to working, especially in-house, without doubt, the kind of people, well, even just how you would traditionally call a department, from HR to people to L&D to P, and like I would say it's probably the most transformational change in a business.
Completely shifted. So HR was this kind of transactional, spreadsheet filling, pen clicking engine that treated people as like a commodity,
and where you didn't want to end up, basically.
Absolutely. It's where you're going to die. There was then a move to like people and culture, which is great. When I remember when that first came out, I was like, yes, because I want to be working in both of these areas. And that was a real nod to people understanding what culture is and how important it is. Now we're talking about PX, right? So it's about people's experience within the organization. And if a person has a positive experience at work, they want to be there. But actually also there's a much wider thing, and there's lots happening in our industry at the moment, which is actually really cool, around looking at the wider system of an organization and actually going, yes, well, my one person coming back from their training goes back and they land in like what you can only imagine as like a web of people. And some training providers, I think, are still stuck in that place where you go, right, I'm going to teach someone feedback skills and off they go. Whereas we really try to, and I think a lot of the forward thinking consultancies are doing the same, try to see that that person is going to land in an environment where there might be 5 or 6 different blockers to them actually being able to shift their behavior or their performance. So it's about helping, our role then becomes about enabling managers to be like, okay, I need my people to be motivated and I need them to know what they're doing, but I also need to be trying to move the friction out of the way. We talk with managers a lot about this concept of friction and fuel, like a rocket ship. We give them all of the fuel to want to do well. We give them the knowledge so that they know how to do well. But actually, the manager's role also is to move all the stuff out of the way that stops them from being able to do their jobs properly. And I think that also is a real shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating. Thank you very much. Okay, amazing. So jump into question 3. How would you say, Jess, that your clients, and in-house teams in general can get the best out of consultancies? How can they really kind of get the best out of what they're actually, seeking from those external consultancies that they've hired?
Yeah, good question. I think it's probably about removing the barrier between that concept of internal and external person. So what I mean by that is that if I go as a consultant to an organization and they give me their problem that they need fixing, and I go, yeah, I've got a training for that, and I serve them my kind of whatever it is off the shelf intervention. Maybe it's a training, maybe it's a team coaching exercise, or I'm working with them on their culture. If we keep this concept of like 2 separate businesses and it being transactional, you don't get full understanding or integration, and therefore quite often consultant ends up solving to the wrong problem. So by working together, more like the external person is internal, we call it partnering. I know lots of consultancies do, but what partnering to us means is that you as an internal have educated me enough about that wider system that we were talking about earlier, so that I can start to help you to move those bits of friction out of the way. So let's take, for example, organization calls me in and says, we want to create a feedback culture in our organization because nobody speaks up. I could just go in and run a workshop. But if the organisation have given me a clearer picture of, well, actually, this is what gets in the way of people delivering feedback, and our managers aren't really supporting people in the right way or asking them the right questions, and actually we've got somebody in senior leadership who never listens and therefore nobody gives feedback, and actually our inductions aren't good enough on the way in, or whatever it might be, that we can then start to think about that organisation as a system and a web, and look at all the different ways that we can then support that problem to be solved. Yeah. Whereas if I'm just someone external and I don't have that level of understanding, I come, you pay me a nice whack of money to deliver my intervention, I go again, and people have had a lovely few hours off work, but nothing actually changes.
Yeah. And I mean, I think back to when I've been in-house and I talk to agencies, and there's always that question of how honest you are, because you want to be transparent, but can use certain coded phrases, I suppose, and be like, when you work with this spokesperson, he's, he or she is quite opinionated, which is obviously, read between the lines, they're a massive pain in the backside, and it's going to be really difficult for you to guide them. Yeah. How honest are businesses with you about some of their people problems? Because I'm also just thinking about from a confidentiality perspective of some tricky employees as well, or
depends on the business. So I would say the ones that we have the most success with and we get the most traction and the best results from are the ones who go, okay, you're going to work with the leadership team, for example, this guy and this girl, you can just see they don't get, there's politics there, that's really challenging.
Shock horror.
So actually, we when you train people in leadership, we're in the business of understanding people, right? So the more that we can get in terms of a level of understanding, the more that we can speak in a language that those people will be able to listen to. And with the vast majority of the interventions that we're running, if you don't have buy-in at a senior level,
Yeah.
people need to hear from someone external and not HR, because there is a hangover from HR being the pencil pushing, spreadsheet filling, policewoman. So you need senior leadership to really understand what it is that you're trying to achieve and why you're trying to achieve it. And I think sometimes what happens is, the people team will bring me in and they want us to come and change behaviors or create a culture of X, Y, or Z. But actually what I need to be able to do is get in front of the CEO or the founder and not speak in HR language, speaking like, what ROI are you getting from your people? Because ultimately, if you can sell this intervention and tell people to go back and practice giving feedback and wave a flag for it, you're likely to get more out of your people. And I think sometimes what happens is that your internal HR or L&D person talks in that kind of fluffy engagement and retention, and so your leadership team just don't get it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Really closely linked to the prior question, just flipping that on its head. So how do you think consultancies can get more out of the person that's hired them, the in-house brand? So, and is there anything I suppose you reflect on as a business and think, this is what this is what we do, this is what we stand for, or even this is what we could do a little bit better, perhaps?
I think it's really tempting as an external consultant to kind of pay lip service and to shiny up what you're providing back to the client and tell them what they want to hear. One of our values at WB is bravery. And what that's about is being really brutally honest. So we get feedback from clients all the time where they're sort of saying, well, actually, that was a really difficult thing to hear. But it's actually, that's at the crux of the issue here. And that's what we need to be focusing on. So I think sometimes it's difficult, but it pays off to sit down with, that difficult founder who has got their real kind of bloody minded focus on one thing where the rest of the organization are saying something, and to just play that back to them and have those honest conversations. I suppose in some ways that's easier for us because we're often hired in to coach leadership or to team coach, where you've got a full lead team and they're saying, right, well, we're not getting the results that we need. What do we need to solve in this team? So we've also almost got a bit of a license to do that anyway, but it's that, not for the faint-hearted, brave conversations. And actually not being frightened to say, look, you've got us in for this. We actually don't think that's your problem. We think this is your problem, and here's what we'd recommend to support that. So that can be quite tricky, but that definitely. The other piece, I guess, is sitting in the problem for a bit longer. So client gets you in, we need this, and you're like, okay, talk to me and help me to understand. We do quite an involved discovery process. So we'll interview different people across the team, we'll survey. If we can, we'll get in and observe a team. If we're doing team coaching, for example, we might observe a team meeting, or we might observe a leader cascading a message through the organization. And you just learn so much from seeing that. So I think any way that you can get in and spend longer in that like diagnosis stage, the longer the better, because what that does is it ensures that you're pointing your interventions in the right direction. And I think the one drawback of getting a consultant in is that they don't understand your organization. So spend longer in understanding the organization, capture measures at the front end so that you can prove impact at the other end. And just brave up and be really honest.
And are you ever surprised almost that your clients are surprised? Because I've noticed that you use the term intervention quite a lot. So, I mean, if I'm contacting a people consultancy with a problem about an intervention, and then you fed back to me and said, you know what, you guys are absolutely fantastic, everything's fine. I mean, I'd be more concerned I've just paid you to confirm absolutely nothing to me. So do you know what I mean? Are you ever a little bit put or just shocked or surprised that some people don't want to accept actually what they've in effect paid for?
I, it's a great challenge. I guess there's always room to improve, right? When it comes to leadership and people, and or there's like, how are we prepared for the stuff that's coming at us down the way? So I think given the pace of change and the fact that, you know, all the challenge that comes with the fact that we've got 5 generations of people working in our organizations now, right? So like, you think about, I'm not sure there's any organization getting that like the people stuff entirely right for all those different generations and all the different cultures, and some working from home and some at work, and, you know, new managers who have been promoted because they're great at their IC role, and then all of a sudden they find themselves in a manager job. There are so many different elements to getting that stuff right. I learn tons of great stuff every time I go into an organization, and I just pick it up and take it with me to the next one. So it sort of feels like there's a moving feast all the time. But we're often pleasantly surprised by the great stuff that companies are doing, and we quite often will connect people together as well. So sometimes it will be like, look, we're doing lots of great stuff at one organization, I've seen something work really well at another, I'll just introduce them. And actually that community and that networking piece is really powerful for them as well.
Okay, brilliant. So, 5th question, Jess. What would you say has caught your eye recently in your respective world?
I hate to say the same thing as what everybody else is going to say, but it's AI.
Oh no.
But
Go on, make
really
it interesting.
with AI in that kind of concept of when AI first sort of started coming on the scene and becoming more used, we were like, fine, we do the human stuff, so AI can stay over there and we do the people stuff. That's great.
I was going to say last
Initially,
episodes, Ebbs was all about leaning into technology and things that you're
and we were
not so
just like,
keen
put a
on.
barrier up, let the AI people do the AI, let the human, like, and we'll focus on the human stuff. But actually what started happening recently, what we've got really excited about, we've got a big proposal in for a client who have got AI like high on their agenda, and we were like, damn, we're not going to get this gig unless we kind of explore how we could use it. So we've been on a bit of a journey the last month or so, and my God, there's so much that AI can really do to enhance human skill. And so I think that's probably the thing that's caught my eye the most, in that, imagine you come on a training course with us, and like I said, our training courses are all, our programs are all kind of, they're split up. So over 6 months, you might have a morning with us on employing a coaching style of leadership, right? Then you meet with a buddy and you talk about the blockers to that, and you're really worried about, you know, handing over responsibility to someone else or whatever that might be. Then you go back to work, and we're tasking you with using this coaching approach at work. If you have an AI bot, which is what we're currently in the process of building, which we're very excited about,
That's cool.
That is protected. You log into it through our website, and it's loaded with all of our leadership program content. And you go to that AI bot, and you can either have it in coach mode or in tutor mode, and you say to it, listen, I've got to have this conversation with Joe Bloggs in sales over there because he's not performing. Help me work out how to word it so that he leaves feeling like this. And the bot feeds you what to say, right? Wow. And you then go and you have that practice, and then you go back to the bot and you say, well, Joe Bloggs in sales over there said this and he responded in this way. And it's only feeding you all of our exceptional human focused content,
Yeah.
but you're getting to practice and have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or so if you've got it in like tutor mode, as it were, it's giving you the information you need. If you have it in coach mode, you can get it to ask you coaching style questions that will help you to shift your thinking on a thing. So I don't want to have that conversation with Joe Bloggs because I think he's going to be defensive. And your coach bot will say, what's driving that thinking? We'll feed it all the right questions, and it will give you those questions to help you to shift your thinking. So where we used to feel like, AI's, this completely separate thing, and we do the human stuff, you could never replicate what we do with AI. But actually, if you sit AI underneath us, suddenly what we're doing becomes so much more impactful, because you've got that like in the moment practice, and you're not having to wait for another training session with
formal
us,
session. Yeah, totally.
or a one-to-one coaching session. So yeah, that's
amazing.
the bit we're getting excited
Okay,
about.
finally, question 6. This is everybody's favorite question. So do you want to share, you're laughing already, it's going to be a good one, like an embarrassing fail that you've made, with like a learning from it? Or maybe there isn't a learning, maybe you're just not going to do it again, but do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So as part of what we do, we spend quite a lot of time with execs, coaching them. I'm always really struck with senior executives how often we're talking about building resilience and their stress levels, and the amount of people that I say, go to bed earlier, stop drinking during the week, look after yourself, whatever it might be. Anyway, so I'm sat in a coaching session with this guy. We're talking about resilience, putting more boundaries in place, not working too late. Little does he know that whilst I'm supporting him in this area, we're building our bot, we're hiring at the moment, we've got loads going on, and actually I am doing that terrible thing at the moment where I work until I put my kids up, and then I put the kids to bed and open comes the laptop. So I'm feeling quite stressed myself. And I, on the way into the coaching session, have picked up, I've got a prop to show you this, which is, or one of these, which is my daughter's, and it's a stress ball, right? So as I'm coaching, we're quite, engaged in a conversation. Of course, your exec coach is supposed to be very focused on what you're doing and not anything else. And I'm squeezing away at this stress ball, and I'm actually like, I'm really going to town. I'm holding it down here. We're about 40 minutes of the way through the call, and the thing bursts. So I'm sat and we're eye to eye. He's talking all about what's going on for him, and I've got gunk like dripping over my fingers onto the notebook in front of me and all over the desk. Now, coaching 101 is create the space, but give the person your full and undivided attention. I had to see it was I did a pretty good job. I was sort of picking the stuff off my fingers, trying to stay as focused as I could. And God, what's the learning there? Like, don't fiddle with something during your coaching sessions. Maybe put some boundaries in place yourself. And cheap stress balls from Amazon are not a thing. This one's a bit more of a high quality one, but I won't be taking it into coaching sessions with me anymore.
Well, I like to think you gave a bit of realism that everybody, whatever the level or expertise, can suffer with a bit of stress and needs a bit of guidance. So cool. All right, Jess, thank you very much. That was the first prop as well, so extra marks for you. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. And for everyone watching, if you'd like to hear more a little bit about Wonderful Brilliant, do drop a note in the comments or ping Jess directly through LinkedIn or their website. So thank you very much, Jess.
Not at all. Thank you, John.